We spend most of our lives gripping tight to people, plans, expectations, outcomes. We hold on because we think if we just try hard enough, care deep enough, control every piece tightly enough, maybe nothing will fall apart. But life doesn't bend to our control. It bends to its own nature. And the more you fight that truth, the more exhausted you become. The Stoic doesn't waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. He doesn't chase certainty. He practices release. Not because he's passive, but because he's wise. Letting go is not giving up. It's waking up. Waking up to the limits of your influence. Waking up to what is actually yours and what never was. There's a quiet kind of power in that moment. The kind that doesn't clench, but opens. That doesn't grasp, but trusts. That doesn't force, but flows. This isn't weakness. This is clarity. This is strength without noise. The strength of choosing what matters and surrendering what doesn't. Of saying, I will show up fully, act with virtue, do my part, but I will not carry what was never mine to hold. This is where peace begins. In the letting go, not in having more control, but in needing less. 1. Surrender is not weakness. We live in a world that glorifies control. The more we hold on, the more we're praised. We're told to push, to force, to strive until the world bends to our will. And anything less than that, anything that looks like letting go, is framed as weakness. But what if that belief is the very thing keeping us stuck? What if the real strength isn't in the grip, but in the release? The Stoics understood something most people today still resist. Life is not meant to be controlled. It's meant to be lived. And living, fully and wisely, means learning when to act and when to surrender. Because not everything in life responds to effort. Sometimes, the harder you try to force something, the more it resists. Sometimes peace doesn't come from fighting, it comes from letting go. But let's be clear, surrender is not giving up. It's not apathy. It's not passivity. It's not throwing your hands in the air and abandoning all responsibility. Surrender is choosing to stop wasting energy on what was never yours to control in the first place. It's an act of conscious clarity, a strategic retreat from illusions. You're not stepping away from the battle, you're stepping back from the wrong one. Think about how much stress, anxiety, and disappointment we carry from clinging to outcomes we can't predict. How often do we replay conversations, worry about other people's actions, obsess over results we wish we could guarantee? All that effort, and for what? It doesn't change the outcome. It just drains us before the outcome even arrives. Surrender shifts that. It says, I will give my best, fully, fiercely, with discipline and integrity, but I will not tie my peace to the result. That's what the Stoics taught. Epictetus wrote, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. There is power in that distinction between what you own and what you do not, between what's within and what's beyond. The problem is, ego hates that line. Ego says, no, I can control this. I should be able to make this person change. I deserve this outcome. But ego is not your ally. It's your illusion. And illusions are expensive. They cost you time. They cost you energy. Most of all, they cost you peace. Real strength, the kind the Stoics admired, is the strength to see clearly, to look at a situation, feel its weight and say, this is what I can influence. This is what I must release. That's not weakness. That's mastery. And it's not just about peace, it's about presence. Because when you let go of control, you start to show up differently. You stop micromanaging every detail and start engaging with reality as it is. You start listening more. You become less reactive, more intentional. You stop playing defense and you start leading your life with clarity. Think of the strongest people you know, truly grounded individuals. They're not tense. They're not frantic. They're not obsessed with outcomes. They move with purpose, but they're not shaken by uncertainty. Why? Because they've made peace with what's beyond them. They don't fear surrender. They practice it. In nature, water is the perfect metaphor. It doesn't resist the rock. It flows around it. It doesn't force. It finds a way. And over time, it wears down even the hardest stone, not through aggression, but through presence, through flow, through surrender, not weakness, but wisdom. So if you're holding on too tightly right now to an outcome, to a relationship, to an identity you've outgrown, ask yourself honestly, what would it cost me to let this go, and what might it give me back? Because surrender isn't the end of strength. It's where real strength begins. 2. Attachment leads to suffering. There's a subtle difference between caring deeply and becoming attached, but that difference changes everything. Caring means showing up with love, effort, and presence. Attachment means trying to possess, to fix, to control. And the moment you confuse one for the other, you begin a slow descent into suffering. The Stoics understood this danger well. They warned not against love or effort, but against the illusion of permanence. Everything you cherish, every person, achievement, moment of happiness, is temporary. It can be taken. It will change. So when your identity is built on the need for things to stay the same, you're living in a fantasy, a beautiful, fragile fantasy that shatters with the first crack of reality. Attachment says, I need this to go my way, or I can't be okay. That's a dangerous contract to sign with the universe, because the moment things shift, and they always will, your peace is stolen, not by the event itself, but by your resistance to it. It's not that pain is avoidable. The loss of someone you love, the collapse of a dream, the change you didn't ask for, these things hurt. But suffering, that ongoing emotional erosion that comes from clinging, from mentally replaying how things should have gone, from arguing with what already is. Epictetus said it best. It's not things that upset us, but our judgment of things. It's not the event, it's the meaning we attach to it. It's our unwillingness to accept that the world doesn't owe us what we expected. The Stoic doesn't stop feeling. He feels deeply, but without dependency. His love is free. His effort is pure. But his peace, that belongs only to him. When you're attached, every shift feels like betrayal. You feel personally offended by reality. But when you're present and unattached, you begin to flow. You can love without clinging. You can work without obsessing. You can walk away when needed, not because you don't care, but because you care correctly. Attachment is fear disguised as passion. It says, if I lose this, I lose myself. That's not love. That's desperation. And desperation will always lead you into anxiety, overthinking, and emotional chaos. You can't grow from that place. You only shrink. But detachment, Stoic detachment, is not cold. It's not robotic. It's not the absence of feeling. It's the presence of self. It's remembering that who you are is not defined by what stays or what leaves, that your worth isn't measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how wisely you let go. Ask yourself, what have I grown too attached to? Is it a person, a role, an image of success that's no longer aligned with who I am? And more importantly, what am I afraid will happen if I release it? Because the truth is, anything you must have to be okay already owns you, and anything that owns you can destroy you. Freedom begins the moment you no longer need to grasp. Love deeply, work hard, show up fully, but hold lightly, because what's meant for you will never require you to break yourself just to keep it. 3. You are responsible for effort, not outcome. One of the most liberating truths in Stoic philosophy, and one of the hardest to accept, is this: you are not responsible for results. You are responsible for effort. That's it. The outcome may be influenced by luck, by timing, by other people's choices, or simply by the randomness of life. But your part, your role, that's in your hands. And that's where your focus should stay. Modern life doesn't make this easy. We're taught from a young age that success is measured by results, that worth is proven by achievements, that you're only as valuable as what you produce, earn, or win. But that's a trap, a dangerous one, because it means your piece is always dangling on a string, one that someone else can pull. When you obsess over outcomes, you become a slave to things you can't control. You start attaching your self-worth to whether someone says yes or no, whether the goal is reached or missed, whether the world applauds or ignores your effort. But a Stoic knows, results don't define you. Process does, discipline does, character does. It's easy to give your best when things are going your way, but what about when you pour your heart into something and it falls apart? What about when you do everything right and still fail? That's the real test. That's when philosophy becomes more than just words. It becomes a way of survival. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." That's not apathy, that's razor-sharp clarity. It means be honest, be present, be disciplined, then step back. The outcome is not your burden. This mindset shifts everything. It brings a quiet kind of strength, one that doesn't get shaken by rejection or paralyzed by fear of failure. You begin to show up differently. You take more risks because your peace doesn't depend on how things turn out. You stop chasing validation because you've already validated yourself through your effort. Imagine planting a seed. You can give it water, sunlight, and attention, but you can't force it to grow. You can't rush the process. And if it doesn't bloom when you expect, that doesn't mean your care was wasted. It means nature had its own timeline. Life works the same way. Most anxiety comes from trying to control what you can't. Most disappointment comes from mistaking effort for entitlement. And most peace begins the moment you accept. My job is to show up, fully, honestly, consistently, and release the rest. So today, whatever you're working toward, whether it's a dream, a healing, a relationship, a habit, ask yourself, am I doing my part with integrity? If the answer is yes, you've already succeeded. The rest is not your weight to carry, because outcomes come and go, but who you become through the effort, that stays with you forever. 4. Learn to release, not resist. We're wired to resist. Every time something unexpected happens, we tense. When life doesn't go our way, we clench, we protest, we push back as if resistance could reverse reality. But here's the paradox. The more you resist what is, the more stuck you become. Resistance doesn't protect your peace, it poisons it. And what the Stoics learned is this: freedom begins not in fighting life, but in releasing your grip on what you can't change. Letting go is not giving up. It's choosing a different kind of strength, It's understanding that pain is amplified when you meet it with denial, that suffering stretches longer when you argue with what already is. You don't have to like what happened. You don't have to agree with it. But you do have to accept it if you want to move forward. Think of emotional resistance like a rope burn. The tighter you hold on, the more it hurts. You think clenching will protect you, but it's what's wounding you. And when you release, when you stop pulling against the tension, the pain softens. The healing begins. The Stoics never denied that life is harsh. They never promised that you could think your way out of heartbreak, injustice, or failure. What they offered instead was a new way of standing in front of it, with clarity, presence, and the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. Because resistance isn't noble when it leads nowhere. What's noble is knowing when to stop. We resist not just events, but emotions. We resist grief, hoping it'll vanish. We resist fear, pretending it's weakness. We resist anger, shoving it down until it explodes. But resistance doesn't resolve emotion, it traps it. And what you trap, you carry. Not for hours, for years. Releasing, on the other hand, is a conscious decision. It means sitting with what's uncomfortable, naming it, feeling it, and then letting it pass through. Not around you, through you. That's what real strength looks like. Not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be ruled by it. Releasing also means forgiving, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace more than you deserve revenge. You deserve clarity more than you deserve to be right. Carrying resentment is another form of resistance, and it always costs more than it gives. So many people are walking through life exhausted, not because of how heavy things are, but because they refuse to put them down. They keep dragging old stories, old expectations, old disappointments through every door they enter. But how can your hands receive something new if they're clenched around something old? When something breaks, a plan, a relationship, a version of yourself, you don't heal by forcing it back together. You heal by releasing your demand that it should have gone differently. That's what the Stoics practiced. Release, not resistance. Engagement, not escape. So ask yourself right now, what am I resisting that I could begin to release? What would happen if I didn't tighten, but breathed? If I didn't control, but accepted? If I didn't fight the moment, but met it? Because what you resist persists, and what you release transforms. 5. Let reality flow through you. Most people move through life as if reality is something to block, shape, or bend. We build expectations like armor, assuming they'll protect us from disappointment, but they only make us more fragile. The Stoic mind takes the opposite approach. It doesn't resist reality, it allows it to pass through, without clinging, without denial, without emotional turbulence. Because when you let life move through you, instead of constantly pushing against it, something powerful happens. You remain rooted, but untouched. Think of yourself like a riverbank. The water flows, fast, unpredictable, even messy at times, but the bank doesn't try to stop it. It supports the current without controlling it. The same is true with your thoughts, emotions, events, and people. You don't have to control the current. You just have to hold your ground, let it pass, and stay aware of your center. Letting reality flow through you means noticing what is happening, not what you wish was happening. It's waking up each day and saying, "Here is what I hoped for, but here is what actually is." Now, how do I respond from a place of clarity? That single moment of grounded acceptance changes your life. because most suffering isn't from what happened, it's from the mental storm we create when we resist it. How often have you gotten stuck not because of the problem itself, but because you refused to see it for what it was? You kept arguing with it, trying to force it to match your fantasy, but reality is not moved by your protest. It only hardens in your resistance, and the longer you deny it, the heavier it becomes. The Stoics taught us to practice amor fati, love of fate. That doesn't mean you celebrate misfortune. It means you allow what happens to happen, and you meet it with intelligence. You let it move through you, like a gust of wind that passes but doesn't uproot the tree. And the more you practice this, the less reactive you become. You stop overthinking every word, every event, every flaw in the plan. You begin to live from stillness, not from survival. Letting reality flow doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting others walk over you or accepting injustice without action. It means responding, not reacting, acting with clarity, not desperation. It means anchoring yourself in truth, not fantasy. It's a different kind of strength, quieter, less visible, but far more powerful. You start to notice things more. You breathe more. You listen better. Because you're not busy fighting life, you're in rhythm with it. You learn to move with grace even when things break, because you no longer demand that they stay whole forever. The truth is, nothing stays. Not moments, not moods, not people, not even the version of yourself you were yesterday. Everything is in motion, so let it move. Let it teach you. Let it pass. Because trying to trap reality in your expectations is like trying to hold smoke in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. So ask yourself today, am I letting life move through me, or am I bracing against it? Am I open, or am I clenched? Am I present, or am I stuck in resistance? Let the moment be what it is. Let it come. Let it pass. And in that stillness, you'll find your greatest power. 6. Fighting what is depletes peace. There's a kind of war that goes unnoticed. It doesn't happen on a battlefield. It happens in the mind. It's the daily struggle between how we wish things were and how they really are, between our ideals and reality. And the more we fight that gap, the more we argue with what is, the more we drain ourselves of energy, clarity, and peace. Because no matter how hard you resist the present moment, it's still the present moment. You don't change reality by opposing it. You only make it harder to live within. Stoicism offers us a clear warning here. The price of resistance is always your inner peace, and that's a price you pay over and over again, often without realizing it. Every time you replay something that already happened, every time you cling to how it should have gone, every time you demand that the world match your expectations instead of adjusting to it with wisdom, you lose calm, you lose presence, you lose yourself. Peace isn't found in perfect circumstances. It's found in your response to imperfect ones. The Stoic doesn't wait for life to cooperate before choosing serenity. He builds that serenity by refusing to fight what's beyond him. That doesn't mean he agrees with everything. It doesn't mean he becomes passive or indifferent. It means he understands this. Clarity comes before control, and control is never external. It begins with the self. Imagine a storm outside your window. You don't stop it by yelling at the clouds. You stop it from disturbing you by closing the window. That's what Stoic peace looks like. It's not denial. It's choosing not to be mentally tossed around by things you can't influence. Fighting what is creates tension. It creates bitterness. It leads to burnout. You start asking unanswerable questions like, why me? Or why now? You start assigning blame, living in loops of frustration and regret. And worst of all, you miss the moment you're in, the only moment where real life happens. So what's the alternative? It's not giving up, it's alignment. It's saying, I don't like this, but it is. So what can I do with it? That's when peace begins, not in retreat, but in recalibration. This is not easy. It requires strength of character. It requires dropping the need to control what was never yours. It requires a deep breath when your ego wants to scream, a pause when your mind wants to panic, and a question that cuts through the noise. Is this worth my peace? Because not everything deserves a battle. Not every event needs your reaction. Not every discomfort needs to be solved. Some things just need to be seen, accepted, and allowed to pass. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just philosophy. That's survival. That's how you conserve your energy for what matters. That's how you stay grounded when the world spins too fast. So today, ask yourself, what have I been fighting that I can start facing? What truth have I been avoiding because it hurts my ego to admit it? And more importantly, what would peace feel like if I finally let that fight go? Because the fight against what is will always be a fight against yourself. And the moment you lay down those weapons, you begin to heal. 7. Focus on your role, not results. We waste so much of our strength chasing things that were never ours to control. Outcomes, reactions, approval, circumstances. We treat life like a performance, constantly scanning the crowd for applause. But Stoicism flips the entire stage. It says, the only thing that matters, the only thing you ever fully own, is the role you play. Not how it's received, not whether it works, just the integrity of your part. When you fixate on results, your mind becomes scattered. You start asking, is this working? Am I winning? Do they see me? And in doing so, you abandon the only question that truly matters. Am I doing what's right? Focusing on your role brings you back to center. It puts the weight where it belongs, on your choices, your attitude, your effort. That's where your power lives. Everything else? That's noise. Let's say you're trying to build something meaningful, a project, a habit, a relationship, a new version of yourself. If your mood depends on how quickly you see progress, you've already set yourself up for frustration. But if your focus is on showing up, on doing your part fully, even when it's invisible, even when it's thankless, then you build something stronger than motivation. You build character. The Stoics believed that playing your role well was more important than playing a grand role. Epictetus said, remember that you are an actor in a play. The playwright chooses your part. Yours is to play it well, whatever it may be. That's not resignation. That's mastery. That's the wisdom of letting go of ego and stepping into purpose. Because when you care more about the outcome than the process, you become reactive. You chase shortcuts. You compromise your values. You say what pleases instead of what's true. But when you care more about your role, the discipline, the honesty, the daily commitment, then the results become secondary. You win either way, not because of what happens, but because of who you chose to be, regardless. It also frees you from comparison. You stop looking sideways. You stop measuring your life against timelines that were never yours. You realize, this is my script. These are my lines, and I will speak them with truth, even if no one claps. This mindset also protects your peace in failure, because when things collapse, and sometimes they will, you don't carry shame. you carry clarity. You know you honored your part, you stayed steady, and that alone is a kind of success the world can't take from you. So today, when things feel uncertain or overwhelming, bring yourself back to the role, not the result. What would the disciplined version of you do next? What would the honest version of you say? What does your role require, regardless of outcome? You don't need to control the ending, you just need to play your part, with dignity, with presence, with strength. And when you do that, the results begin to lose their grip, because peace isn't found in the outcome, it's found in how you show up. 8. Let go with grace. There's a difference between letting go and letting go with grace. Anyone can walk away. Anyone can release something with bitterness, frustration, or resentment. But the Stoic way is quieter, more powerful. It's the ability to release, not with clenched teeth, but with open hands, with clarity, with dignity, with the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself through anger or resistance. Letting go with grace means honoring what once was, even as you step into what now is. It means recognizing that not everything is meant to be fixed, and not everyone is meant to stay. It means that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to not fight, to not argue, to not explain yourself one more time, to simply breathe and let it be. We often think that letting go is weakness, that if we truly cared, we'd hold on. But the truth is, holding on past the moment of truth is what keeps us trapped. Sometimes holding on is the avoidance of pain, and letting go is the path through it. The Stoics understood that everything in life is borrowed: relationships, possessions, health, even time. And because nothing is truly ours, we must learn to release without crumbling. Epictetus said, "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it,' but say, 'I have given it back.'" That reframe changes everything. It teaches you to part with things, people, plans, expectations, without losing yourself in the process. Letting go with grace also means letting go of the need to be understood, of the need to be right. It's choosing peace over ego, closure over chaos. It's the realization that dragging the past behind you doesn't honor it. It just exhausts you. And letting go doesn't always mean something dramatic. Sometimes it's internal, letting go of resentment you've carried for too long, letting go of the version of you that was shaped by fear, letting go of the timeline you forced on your life. These releases happen quietly, but their impact is massive. Graceful release is not passive, it's active surrender. It's saying, "I see clearly now, and I choose to walk forward without dragging the weight of what no longer serves me." It's not running away, it's stepping away, with intention, with strength, with calm. This is one of the hardest things a human being can do, but also one of the most freeing, because when you let go with grace, you return to yourself, you come back home, and you clear space for something more aligned, more honest, more peaceful. So ask yourself now, what am I holding on to out of habit, not harmony? What am I gripping with fear instead of releasing with trust? Because grace is not just how you carry yourself in the good moments, it's how you let go in the hard ones. And sometimes peace begins not in holding on, but in learning how to release with love. 9. Flow over force. There's a kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't strain, doesn't demand. It simply flows. It doesn't resist the current of life. It moves with it, adapts to it, and uses its momentum. That's the kind of power the Stoics cultivated. Not the brute force of trying to control every outcome or person, but the calm mastery of flowing with reality, not against it. Most people live in a state of constant pressure, forcing solutions, forcing relationships, forcing clarity before it's ready. But force is resistance disguised as effort. It's often rooted in fear, the fear of stillness, of uncertainty, of surrender. And the more you force, the more life resists back. The tighter you grip, the less control you actually have. Flow, on the other hand, is a different kind of discipline. It's not weakness, it's not passivity. It's the strength of alignment, of choosing patience over panic, of acting when it's time, not just when your anxiety demands it. It's trusting the rhythm of life enough to listen, not just push. Think of nature. Water carves through rock, not with force, but with consistency. Wind reshapes landscapes without tension. The seasons change without resistance. There is no rush, yet everything is accomplished. That's what flow looks like. Quiet, steady, relentless in its own way. To live in flow is to release the illusion of control. You still show up, you still give effort, but you don't attach your peace to how things turn out. You stop demanding certainty before taking the next step. You begin to act from intention, not fear. Force says, "This must happen now." Flow says, "I will take the right step and let the rest unfold." This doesn't mean you stop pursuing excellence or avoid challenge. Quite the opposite. It means you're so rooted in your principles that you don't need to overexert. You trust your values to guide you. You trust time to reveal what effort alone cannot. It's often in our most chaotic moments that the temptation to force becomes strongest. We want quick answers, fast fixes, but that's exactly when flow matters most. When things are unclear, pause. When you feel stuck, breathe. When you feel the need to make something happen, ask if you're coming from fear or from clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nature gives and takes away." To be serene is to trust this movement. The Stoic doesn't panic when plans shift. He doesn't lash out when people change. He stays anchored, not because he controls the wind, but because he controls the sail. So ask yourself, where in my life am I forcing what could be flowing? What would it look like to stop grasping and start trusting? Because in the end, flow is not the absence of strength. It's the presence of wisdom. And wisdom knows what moves with life moves forward. 10. Acceptance is the Stoic shield. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's gearing up with clarity. It's not the silence of surrender, but the calm confidence of someone who sees things as they are and responds with strength, not resistance. To the Stoic, acceptance is not passive. It is the first and most essential act of inner power. Before you can change anything, you must face it, fully, without illusion, without denial, without delay. Most people misunderstand this. They think acceptance means agreement, that if they accept their pain, they're validating it, that if they accept their past, they're trapped by it. But it's the opposite. You cannot heal what you refuse to accept. You cannot let go of what you still resist, and you cannot grow from what you pretend didn't happen. Acceptance is the shield that deflects unnecessary suffering. It doesn't block life's blows, but it softens their impact. It keeps you from being crushed by what's already happened. It protects your mind from drowning in what-ifs and why me. It reminds you, this is what is. Now, what will you do with it? When you accept the reality in front of you, a loss, a betrayal, a failure, even your own flaw, you remove the power it has to haunt you. You say, yes, this happened, and I am still here, That moment of truth is where real change begins, because now you're operating from a place of strength, not avoidance. This is what made Stoic thinkers so steady. They didn't flinch from difficulty. They didn't wait for a perfect world. They trained their minds to accept the imperfect one and act within it with excellence. Epictetus said it clearly, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." That's not pessimism. That's liberation. Because acceptance frees up all the energy you were wasting on resistance. And that energy can now go towards something better: creation, correction, connection, contribution. Acceptance also deepens your empathy. You stop expecting people to be perfect. You stop demanding that life unfold exactly the way you scripted it. You learn to meet the world on its terms, not yours, and in doing so, you begin to find peace within those terms. But don't mistake this for complacency. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop denying. You start from where you are, honestly, and you take the next right step. That's how change really happens. Not from fighting reality, but from facing it with open eyes and a ready heart. So ask yourself now, what truth have I been refusing to accept? What part of my life have I been trying to rewrite instead of meet with honesty? Because acceptance isn't defeat, it's preparation. It's the first act of wisdom and the ultimate shield against despair. Control is not about grasping harder. It's about choosing wiser. The Stoic path is not paved with force, but with focus, not with perfection, but with presence. In a world full of noise, chaos, and shifting outcomes, the one thing that will always belong to you is your response, your effort, your discipline, your mind. What you've heard in this episode wasn't just philosophy. It was a quiet invitation, a reminder that you don't need to control everything to have peace. You just need to stop giving your power to what was never yours in the first place. Let go of the illusions, let go of the noise, let go of the false belief that control means dominance. It doesn't. It means clarity. It means showing up every day with intention, knowing that your role is effort, not outcome. Discipline, not drama. Direction, not distraction. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to win every battle. You just need to stay grounded in what's real. And what's real is this: your habits, your mindset, your character, your focus. These are the levers that shape your life. So take a breath, step back, reclaim your strength, not by tightening your grip, but by loosening your need to control what was never yours. And remember this: the most powerful person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who no longer needs to control everything to feel at peace. You've already started that path. Now stay on it, quietly, steadily, intentionally. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you're building your inner strength through stoicism and self-discipline, subscribe. We've only just begun. Until next time, stay centered, stay steady, and never stop working on the one thing that truly matters: you.